Hey, what is up, everyone? It is Rich. All right, welcome to a new video. Like I mentioned a couple of days ago with the Grifter video, one of the things that I thought I would do for maybe the next month or so is we're going to really go through Wildstorm as a publisher. And I started thinking about it a tiny bit. I don't know if it was last night or late last night or early this morning, but I started thinking about a lot of the books that I really wasn't paying attention to further down the road. To me, Wildstorm is really like a publisher from like 1992 till around 2005 or 2008. At some point, kind of in that window of the early decade of 2000s, DC slowly kind of dismantled Wildstorm. But the reality is between about 1998 and 2005, Wildstorm actually did publish a lot of stuff that I didn't really pay that much attention to because I was so busy working. I mean, I would kind of flip through the comics, but I figured if we're really going to look at Wildstorm, we might as well go back to like a couple of the OG titles. And I mean, as much as Wildstorm grew up as a publisher, and I think better writers and stuff like that came in, I mean, definitely you would be blowing it if you didn't hit Wildcats #1. So this actually came out before I started collecting comics. I in a weird way, I was kind of thinking about it. I had to run to the post office, so as I was doing that, I was kind of thinking about the video. Wildcats to me was one of a lot of books that I kind of got around the same time, and so it's like I remember kind of my favorite Image books were Pit, Cyberforce, what else, Spawn. Those were my top three. Wildcats was good, but I didn't have a point of reference for Jim's work, and so I didn't know like how many people Jim influenced at the time. I'm just like literally I started collecting comics on my own, so I had no peer group. I didn't have anyone to talk to about comics. It was just basically like a friend of mine sort of said, you should check out Spawn. He worked at a comic book store. You've heard the story before if you've followed me long enough. But there is something funny about it. So I wasn't drawing at all. I had been a musician. A friend of mine that I had been in a band with worked at a video game / comic book store. I had been in this store so many times and rented video games and never once looked at a single comic. I didn't care about comics. I wasn't interested in comics. They literally were not on my radar at all. But when he showed me Spawn, I was like, this is really cool. So Wildcats to me, where I really became a fan was when Travis took over. Sometime around it might have, honestly, as weird as this sounds, it might have been right about as I was breaking in. It was a little before that, but yeah, I mean, I liked Wildcats. My favorite issue of Wildcats was issue #2, and the reason I liked it is I always thought that the cover was cool, but I didn't dislike it. There's some great moments in this comic, but yeah, it's interesting. I became a Jim Lee fan several years later, really. Going back and kind of seeing the body of work and stuff like that. But I remember one funny story, and then we'll get into this, is I remember seeing Gen 13 #1, like the mini series. It had already been coming out. I think issue 5 was out at that time. And I remember looking at it and going like, this one character looks just like the dude from Wildcats. So that's how clueless I was. It was Lynch. But I was like, what are they just like repurposing characters? Or like, what is going on? So I didn't even realize that there were studios probably at that point. What I mean? Like bodies of work were coming through studios and they were creating their own new universes. So, all right, let's get into this. This cover is very nice. I actually really like the way that Jim drew Spartan on this. Zealot looks very, very cool. Voodoo is in particular a very, very nice little drawing, and Emp looks great too. Grifter is good. Warblade is so, and Void is probably the least interesting to me on this cover. But it's a nice piece, and this first issue is colored by Joe Rosas, who didn't really stick around at Wildstorm too long, and I honestly don't know why. I know Joe Chido eventually came in and started doing color guides, but yeah, Rosas was the colorist on Jim's X-Men work, and yeah, I don't know how you missed the Wildstorm gravy train, so I don't know what the scenario was that he kind of left that. So we're gonna try to go in order here. So let's look at the credits. This will be kind of fun. I'm looking at these names down here. Tom Mason. I don't know if it's the same Tom Mason. There's a colorist I think named Thomas Mason that sort of is online. Digital Chameleon to the color steps. This is funny because the book we were looking at yesterday, the Ed McGuinness book, was Digital Chameleon. I don't really know who started Digital Chameleon. So anyway, Joe Rosas did the colors, and what that means is he did the color guides. So he would do hand colored. They would make a photocopy of the page in black and white, and usually they would shrink it down to about 8.5 by 11, and they would color it with markers. And even back then, at times, they would actually put like color codes. We've got Mike Heisler, the letterer. Mike not only was the letterer, but he actually created Union and wrote Union, so the original miniseries. And we've got Jim Lee, Brandon Choi, who kind of vanished sometime in the early 2000s, late 90s. Yeah, Scott Williams on inks, of course. The team to beat. All right, I like this part. Kind of like The Thing. I've not looked at this book since the last time I did a video on it, in fact. So this will be interesting for me. But yeah, dude, these are great. This opening shot is fantastic. This panel is great. This third panel is really, really nice. I love the pose that this guy's in. It's dynamic. He looks tough, but he's having a moment where this unusual object that's crashed to Earth is starting to animate in front of him. This is nice. We've got Void popping up, and then this cool little sequence right here. This is a very, very nice page. Great page, in fact. Really, really just gets you there. This is a great setup. There's some real funny moments and memorable moments in this book. So, okay, now we've got Lynch. This was the kind of stuff that I wasn't as big a fan of. Let me grab some color. I can kind of show you the things that, like, for whatever reason, and it may be the colors more than the drawing, but, like, faces like this, I wasn't a huge fan of at the time. I never really understood all this, like, stuff on the face. The rendering, it didn't really do much for me. And this right here, it just looks a little too mechanical. This is good. I like the way that Jim draws these techie guys. This is a nice panel. This helicopter is actually great. This is a nice profile of Lynch. Void looks cool. This is a great down shot. Kind of like get like a little bit of a Wills vibe with stuff like this. You know, Wilson, Jim, and Scott all you know, at some point early in their careers, sort of became a group. You know, Homage Studios. So, and this is very nice too. Yeah, I was never a big fan of all this rendering on the faces. But that's, you know, that's such a subjective thing. That was part of the magic, but this stuff. And Silvestri did it a lot too, but the thing that I liked about Mark's work on Cyberforce a bit more is Mark did actually use a lot more graphic blacks, and that kind of is my thing. I'm a big fan of Frank Miller and Mignola, and again, it's all subjective and personal taste and blah, blah, blah. Great hair on this. You know, again, I'm not a big fan of the colors. Like, this kind of stuff doesn't really do much for me. He just looks sort of flushed and kind of weird. I mean, I know Emp is in a bad spot here. He's had a rough night. But, yeah, the colors on Wildcats definitely got better as it went along. These are honest reviews. I love this. This is awesome. This is great too. This whole sequence is really, really funny. Jim draws real good thugs. Like this guy with the hat and the ball cap is not so great, but yeah, he's really good with like the tough guy faces, and he generally will do them in a profile at some point if they're hanging out for a few panels. And we've got Emp looking pretty beat up. He's missing a tooth. He's had a fun night or a fun week or two. These are funny. There's some of the comic books. I think this might be. It's hard to read in this scan. Got some Extreme Studio nods. It looks like it's hard for me to read what that says on this. I see a Cyberforce box. Fun stuff. All right, let's go. Continue the process. No. All right, bam. Emp takes it. You imagine getting actually hit by a metal pipe, how bad that would hurt, especially across the head. I don't know if you'd come back from that. If someone hit you with a metal pipe in the back of the head, I think you're done. Unless this guy's a pussy and he doesn't have much of a swing. I'd take your head off with a pipe. I played a lot of baseball as a kid and up until I was almost 18. You don't think of me as a jock. No, my friends were really into sports. I just sort of, to hang out with them, I had to play sports. It was one of those things. It was funny, though, actually, speaking of Jim, he took me to the batting cages one time, and they were, like, tripping out on me. It's like, damn, because I went to the fastest batting cage and was knocking it out. That was really funny. The reaction was like, it's like a secret skill I had. Oh, it's funny shit. This is great. Oh, sorry. I'm on the magic wand. I need to be on the magic brush, which is a pencil tool right now. I like Void. She, this was very impressive. If you were a young artist at this time and you were learning about comics, like the chrome shines that like Willis and Jim did and stuff like that were really, really neat. Emp's hair is quite long. I didn't realize his hair was so long when he was laying down. It's actually funny. I haven't seen this in a while. This is a nice little panel. Yeah, Emp looks funny. They're going to clean him up in another panel or two. It's one of my favorite sequences from this book. As I just loved this whole thing right here is hysterical. He's so tiny too. It's very, very funny. This is, again, really, really nice. This is great. Him stumbling out of the alley. Really, really nice shot too. I love how Jim turned the camera a little bit and gave us a little bit of like a 3-point perspective on this. Very, very cool. This is great. This is great. He's really using space effectively. You have to understand, this is a lot of panels on this page. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 with these insets. 8-panel page is not a lot of real estate to tell a story, and these are very clear and dynamic figures. This is a good takeaway from me, because the book I'm working on is a lot of 7 and 8-panel pages, which, if you saw my interview with David Finch, the look on his face said it all. He's like, I don't like to read comics with 7 and 8-panel pages, and I don't like to draw comics with it. It's just too tight. This is great. It's such a good drawing. Emp's hair looks awesome. I mean, to me, this is like a real moment. And the girls are so cute. Or the girl, I should say. This is really, really good. But yeah, they totally clean him up. And then him getting out of the elevator is hysterical. This is really funny shit. This right here is so cool. And it's interesting. I don't know if Jim did this on purpose. And you have to understand, I worked around Jim for many years and we're real good friends. Jim is actually very short. When you're around him a lot, it doesn't seem like he is, but if you haven't seen him in a while and then you see him, he's a fairly small guy. He's buff though, because he wrestled a lot in like college and stuff like that. But yeah, it's trippy. But I've always kind of like wondered if like Emp is like, if he did it intentionally or unintentionally. But it's probably one of those things where it's a little combo of both. But yeah, I mean, this is it kind of to me is Jim. He is Halo. And again, the girl's really, really pretty. This is a really actually kind of cool moment in general for the art, and I'll explain why. To me, this is, you're seeing the last remains of his Marvel style here. To me, this still feels a little bit like his Uncanny X-Men Marvel stuff, or X-Men, whatever you want to call it. But it starts to go. This other Image thing is more artists started doing Image work. I think that they all kind of were, it's like, okay, this is the movement. Okay, this works. This is kind of what the fans are responding to. But this, to me, he's still doing what I would consider, Marvel style storytelling in some ways. And it gets bigger and kind of more in your face as it goes along, which, it's I'd have to go back and part of the process of doing this is nice for me, because I can kind of retroactively kind of critically look at this stuff, also as a penciler too. So it's like, the first thing I'll say right up front is these guys all draw very, very well, whether you like the style or you want to sort of quote unquote critique a panel or two. All these artists are really phenomenal. But you're doing a job and you're getting stuff in. This guy's cool too. This is a nice page. Again, I think the colors maybe could have been a little more dramatic, but this was the transition into good colors. This is really cool though. Really, really cool actually. Man, I like that a lot. I could use this in Crystal Planet. The first 2 issues of Crystal Planet are a little dull, honestly. I mean, there's some fun stuff, but the really, really good issues are issues 3, 4, and 5. Like the last 75 pages of the book, or series, I guess you would call it, are really where I'm going to be able to have some fun. But right now, it's just a lot of discipline and getting through sort of the setup. There's a lot of setup. But yeah, it's funny because I honestly, I'm going to be able to flex some interesting things as the story goes along. Once it's more on Crystal Planet and off of Earth, present day Earth, it gets way, way more where I'm going to be able to be creative with stuff. This is nice. You know, this was another thing too, is I never really was completely sold on this kind of like lighting on stuff. I'm not a big fan of these shapes. So there was definitely shapes that were being used on some of the image stuff that didn't connect with me. And it, honestly, I mean, you can think of other studios and artists that use this quite a bit, and it's kind of probably part of the reason that I was never as completely into that stuff. But it's subjective. This is nice. I actually really like the ship. The ship is good. Maul is great. He's such a fun character. He's really, really cool looking. He does a great Spartan, man. That's really, really good. This is a nice panel. You know, it's interesting, too, is there's a lot of comic book artists really excel at this size drawing and things. And I don't know what it is, because I kind of feel that way, too. This is a very, very comfortable size to draw characters at on a page. And it brings something out in your stuff that sometimes as you have to draw things bigger, it loses. It's a really interesting thing. But yeah, this is sometimes the money, you know. It's like Drew Struzan. I always say, like on a Drew Struzan poster, if you have a big Struzan piece and there's, you know, all the heads doing stuff. My favorite parts of the Drew Struzan posters are a lot of times the little stuff that he puts down here or the little things on the sides, and not so much. The big heads are obviously great. But even Struzan really kind of kicks ass on that, like, tiny stuff. Struzan. Drew Struzan. All right, what do we got? This is such a fun page. It's so funny. So memorable. So we've got Hellspawn. Very, very cool villain design. And then Pike. Or PK. And this guy's mouthing off. Pike doesn't like it, and he rams his face into the plate of spaghetti. It's hysterical. Did he have meatballs? I felt like there was meatballs. Am I tripping? I don't know. I remember meatballs. Maybe these scans aren't selling it to me. I don't know. I remember like a couple of meatballs. That'd be funny, right? All right, come on, let's go, friends. Oh, and if you have recommendations for other Wildstorm books that you would like to see, dig deep, dig far. There's so many fun books, and the thing is we're not just going to focus on #1 issues, because that gets kind of boring. And look, the reality is people check out of titles so fast. So, you know, like if you go, man, you know what we need to look at, Rich? We need to look at Kindred #3. That was the good one. Or it could be some of America's best comic stuff. Maybe it's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Maybe it's some Chris Sprouse book that he did. Maybe it's Kevin Nolan or Arthur Adams. You go, dude, we need to look at the Authority issues that Arthur Adams did. Or Brian Hitch. I mean, there's so much good shit that came through Wildstorm. It was kind of staggering as they started really like looking further than the core titles and the glamour artists now. Scott Jumbier brought in a lot of good stuff. Kevin Nolan did a lot of great shit for us. Jack B. Quick, that's all good stuff. So this is a classic scene too. I mean, Jim actually did a really, really good job in one single comic of introducing a lot of very, very interesting characters. You know, he really did. It'll be interesting. I know it's not a Wildstorm book, but at some point I do want to go back and actually look at Cyberforce #1 and see how Silvestri introduced characters. The weird thing with Cyberforce is even though it was one of my favorite early Image books, I mean, by issue 4, it was just coming out so infrequently that it was really difficult to follow. I felt Pitt suffered from that too. Keown just wasn't producing enough to keep me engaged. I mean, by issue 3 or 4, it was like, so I'm gonna wait another year for a book. It just didn't work for me. He's great, you know. He's done some really good commissions over the last like 20 years. So, and a few books too, but we'll see. But I remember turning a friend of mine on to Pitt, and he'd always ask me, "Is issue 3 out yet?" I'm like, dude, I don't know what is going on. He's playing bass up in Canada and enjoying his royalties off of Pitt #1. He doesn't need to work. Voodoo, my lady, probably my favorite Wildstorm core character. Although I never really think about her anymore. That was a fling we had many, many years ago. But yeah. Voodoo, you were cool. But DC took all of you and made y'all's disappear. This is great. Really, really nice drawing. This is what I tell people this, because people get all weird about stuff. Like, they're like, this isn't the way that I want it anymore. This isn't published. Especially if you're a creator, create a book. Make characters that are better than these then, you know? Stop belly aching about the past. Create something new. Now, if you're just a fan, I get it. You know, it sucks. This is a really, really nice grifter face. Bam! This is pretty classic, the clothing for that era. And it gives me like little shades of Silvestri. I think all the black. This is, but see, this is kind of the look that I like, is this kind of thing. Less rendery, more black. That's my jam. And that's why these kind of pages work better for me with Jim's stuff, is because there's not as much hatching. You know, this is, to me, an acceptable amount of, like, line work on a face, even though it's obviously a masked face, but... But, you know, you all have your own opinions on this stuff. That's what makes it fun. That's part of fandom. I go and watch people argue about guitars and bands. And it's the same thing. It's exactly like comics. You have know-it-alls that have never touched a pencil or drawn a book or played a guitar. And the best, my favorite guitar thing is people that have really expensive gear but can't play. Like, I've got the rarest guitar that blah 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 ever made, and then they do like a demo of it, and you're like, oh man, what happened, dude? Look at the little gun, it's cute. All right. Let's continue. Bam, 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 bam. It's crazy too. I'm slowly going through and selling like about half of my comic book collection, but I'm excited to actually have what I do keep organized, where I can find stuff. Because even if I wanted to, I could find, I think, the trade of this, but I have all the singles probably in multiple copies. Everything is in gridlock right now in my collection. It's really, really frustrating. So that's why I'm selling it. It's like, if you can't enjoy your stuff because you have too much stuff, then it's time to get rid of some stuff. The most awesome first world problems. But I was telling my mom about it. I was just saying, it's like 25 years working in comics. You're going to accumulate a lot of shit. It's impossible almost not to, unless you're a minimalist. This is a great, great piece. Man, he draws them all so good. I'm trying to think... Jim didn't really... He hasn't drawn Hulk much, but I'm sure he's drawn Hulk. But based on his Maul, he probably would do a pretty nice Hulk. He'd be pretty Hulk, though, I think. Speaking of Hulk, I did actually really like Dale Keown's Hulk stuff. I went back and bought those later, but yeah, Keown's really, really good. Man, he draws anatomy so nice. This is really cool. In fact, you know, I've mentioned this. I have a really cool Dale Keown pencil commission that I'm gonna do finishes on. It's not the most detailed Dale Keown piece, but they want me to detail it like him. So at some point when I finish Crystal Planet, I'll do that. And for people wondering, so Blaster Kid, I'm gonna finish Crystal Planet and then get on Blaster Kid. I have 94 pages of Crystal Planet left. I think I can do it in the next 18 weeks. So I'm just going to work on Crystal Planet and get it done, because I want it out of my life, finished and done. It sounded harsh the way I said it. I just mean, like, I don't like multitasking on creative endeavors, and the whole script is done. So there's no reason to lollygag on it. So that's what's going on with Blaster Kid. I am waiting, though, for Kelsey to... Kelsey's probably watching this right now. I'm waiting for Kelsey to color that little promo. He's almost done. But, yeah, so I'm going to knock out Crystal Planet. I've been doing a page just about every day. Pencils and inks. It's not easy, but I will be twice the artist that I am currently by the end of this process. Every day is getting easier and more comfortable. I saw a good quote yesterday. I don't know if I can remember. Hold on, where's my phone? I'm going to read it to you. We're going to end it with a good quote. It's one of those, like, I don't remember who said it. Let me see if I can find it. You're like, quotes? What are you doing, Rich? Hold on. I took a screenshot of it, I think. Where is it? Is it this? Wait. Oh, yeah, this is a pretty good quote. So this is by Eckhart Tolle, which I have no idea who that is, but it says, "It may look as if the situation is creating the suffering, but ultimately this is not so. Your resistance is." I was like, man, that's really, really cool, because it does make sense. If you turn a molehill into a mountain, then yeah, of course you're going to struggle through it. You just need to go with it. If you've got something to do, do it. You're going to get better at it. You get better at anything that you stick to and continue to work on. So, and I did a really, really good video for Patreon not too long ago, and I explained this, and I said, look, I said the first 2 years I was at Wildstorm was fucking miserable. It was really fun, but it was so hard, and it was so frustrating, and it was so disappointing many times. I said I used to go home almost every day and was not happy with the quality of work that I was doing. I remember it very distinctly, going down to the parking garage and being like, fuck, man, fucking can't get this shit as good as I want it to be. The second thought I had right after that was, tomorrow is a fresh day, and if I come in and try to improve and do something better than I did that day, then it would be all right. And you have to really hold to that. So look, I'm leaving you on an up note. Your resistance is the problem, not the situation. Don't be a wuss or wussy. All right, Dan Quayle, what an awesome way to end this. And we've got an explosion. All right, so that is Wildcats #1. That was really fun. I went off on a lot of tangents. I'm fired up. It's like you have to have the eye of the tiger to go kick ass. You try to limp into comics, it's going to hand you your ass back to you and say, nope, not now. This is only for people that are brave. Willing to put it out there. All right, so you guys have a great day. Give me recommendations for more videos. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited to see what you guys suggest. And in fact, I would say that there's a high likelihood of me selecting something that I'm not as familiar with, because that'll be fun for me to look at a book that I don't know or wouldn't normally have looked at. So yeah, throw out your suggestions. If you have a specific issue number, that's even better. That'll be really, really cool. And let's have some fun with this. We'll do this for a few weeks, you know. We'll have a theme. And in fact, I was thinking what I could do is I could actually try to maybe do a little tiny bit of a schedule, meaning that, you know, like if I decide that for tomorrow's video would be like such and such, then I'll put a little update so you can go, oh man, tomorrow we're going to do Backlash, you know, or we're going to do Taboo, you know, some one shot, whatever it is. So, you know, it'll be fun. There's a lot of great shit. All right, you have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.